Yes, Robert.
Well, it's very nice to be back in Buxton. I see this room has a facelifts in here last, and I hope next time the can extend to the bedrooms.
The year after that, they'll extend it to the guests.
And Orwell, of course, was an observer reporter, amongst other things, so I'm very proud to represent that strand of his life. And I should tell you that Matthew very kindly referred to a piece I wrote in May about the making of the story behind 1984. And I was absolutely flabbergasted, in fact we all were, by the number of online hits the piece had. It had about 250,000. So clearly, Orwell touches a very big nerve. And it was a simple double-page piece. It wasn't anything particularly special, just an account of how it didn't actually. It just it had the making of nice point. And I also like to pay tribute to Marina. I think Marina is a political novelist. I mean, many of you, I'm sure, have read her book, and it's the Ukrainian short history of. It's a political book. It's a political book about the country we live in many respects. And it's a marvellous book. It's very funny. And it's beautifully done, and so I think we are in the presence of a political novelist, as what I was talking about. But I want to say that I think I agree with Marina that and Matthew, it encompasses quite a wide. I mean, almost anything is in some sense political. And you can say that we go all the way back to Utopia, Thomas More. And I want to just refer to a handful of books, which I think Orwell, who is very well read and very well educated, would have known when he came to write 1984. We can discuss what we think 1984 is, but I think it's more than a satire. Interestingly, it's a futuristic book. We were discussing this last night, actually. It's probably in some ways inferior to, or it's different from, Brave New World, which is a point of contrast. Interestingly, both Orwell and Huxley, and a third writer, Henry Green, wrote a book called Concluding, also a futuristic book, all meant to Eton. I don't know what this is about Eton. This is a curious quiz fact. Then also there's a satirical element which I think you can find in, I mean, Orwell certainly used Swift, and I think Covered as Troubles is a political book, and there's a strong strand of agency writing in government, which is satirical, which Orwell would have ingested in the book by Animal Farm. And then coming on into the 19th century, I think, I mean, Marina's mentioned George Eliot, has been referenced to Thackeray. I think we mustn't forget Disraeli, Sybil and Coningsby, both very intensive political books. Dickens' Christmas Sayings travels to investigate political themes.
And indeed Anne Whitaker, another novelist.
Speechless. Yes. Last time I was on a panel in Norwich, and I discovered afterwards that there was somebody from the Sunday Times at the back writing everything down, so I keep my mouth shut this time. And then I think coming on to the decade of Orwell's birth, the turn of the century, the Edwardian period, is very important. He grew up, there was a strong, this was when the thriller began, and I think there's a strong element of 1940, there's a thriller element. I think the thriller was something, Orwell himself was a devotee, as it were, of commercial bad fiction, and I think the thriller of the Edwardian period, Riddle of the Sands, all those books, went into his writing. And I think that, and I think there's a sense in which someone like Le Carré is a political writer. The Smiley books are deeply political, very passionate, and I think there's not really a better picture of Britain in the 70s than the Smiley books. Beautifully written. I think he's a great writer, actually. So I think, there's some ways everything is political, but I think there are different kinds of narrative. And I think there's also something about 1940 that I've recently reread, which is quite crude. The love affair is crude, the narrative is quite simple, it's very broad strokes, it's not subtle really. And I think Orwell also himself was a journalist who wanted a story, and he understood that to be a story. And I think I agree with Matthew, he probably would have been a Twitterer. He certainly would have been a blogger, certainly. But I think he would have been horrified by the bad manners of the blog. I think he was quite courteous himself. There's a very nice story I got from having written this piece in the Observer about 1984, where an old friend of his bumped into Orwell, Eric Blair, in Islington in about 1942. He said, "Eric, what are you up to?" And Orwell said, "Well, I'm writing this book about pigs." And this farm, this very poor old boy, we've lost it this time. But coming to 1984, this is a book which, in its time, was quite specific, and now has this extraordinary. Marina's alluded to Big Brother, Newspeak, Insult, all that, several things, all that. Some of it's been part of our inheritance. It's both very specific and something much bigger. I think one of the things we want to look at is how it has grown from quite a tiny beginning, really.
I'm rather keen that we don't, unless we really mean to, talk ourselves into the cloudy observation that everything is political and consequently all fiction is political. And I'm looking for a really good novelist whom we would say was not a political novelist. Let me
Goldie.
Goldie.
It's going to be very hard to say that Jane Austen is a political novelist in any proper sense.
Political novel.
Which one?
Pride and Prejudice.
Well, a political, social, all right, but you're straining a distinction.
I would think a lovely writer I really greatly admire, Elizabeth Taylor. I wouldn't think she was she's just a great writer of social observation. I wouldn't say she was a political writer. I think there are writers who are not. Let's agree now that we won't go into say that it's politics. But I do think political novels draw from different elements. I think there's a thriller element, I think there's a narrative element, there's a satire element. How it's all woven together is up for us to discuss. I think that's the